Hello, everybody. I am here today with Tao and Hoppi from the Lammas community in Wales. And welcome to the Solutions podcast. And it's always really great to talk to inspiring people that are focused on the solutions and not the problems. So please introduce yourselves. And yeah, over to you.
Okay, hi there. My name's Tao. I live on the land, basically. It's what I do. I live on the land and I build structures. And I am really into exploring we can live a modern life, but really rooted in the landscape.
And I'm Hoppi Winbush, and I live simultaneously on the land, and my passions lie in supporting people to make the shift, the conscious shift from inner reality, relating directly to nature, how those inner and outer worlds can come into a state of oneness and harmony, so that this precious, gorgeous life that we are given is deeply honored and loved and cared for as truly sacred.
Yay. And so tell us a little bit about Lammas. When did Lammas get started, and what are the kind of like how big is it? Just a little overview of what and where is Lammas.
Okay, so Lammas is an eco-village in Wales, and it began as a concept in 2005, but started manifesting in reality 2009. So we are in North Pembrokeshire. We occupy over 100 acres of land. We have a population of approximately 50 people who are exploring what it is to live sustainably. For the most part, people are living on eco smallholdings. We are off-grid, so we're generating our own electricity and our own energy. We're growing, most everyone grows at least a proportion of their own food, but that varies to degrees. And yeah, I would say we consider ourselves as kind of pioneers on all sorts of levels.
Yeah, there's about 15 acres of woodland. There's a beautiful stream that goes down, and that stream powers our hydro. And in our plot in particular, we have a mix of solar and hydro power. So we're directly linked to the sunlight, we're directly linked to the waterfall. At the moment right now it's raining, which I'm overjoyed about because our hydro got quite low. So suddenly it's like, yeah, it's raining, we've got loads of power. So there's something very, very, for me, really special about my power use being directly linked to the elements, of sun and of water. It's just something really relational. And I think it's that for me is the core of this eco living. It's about living relationally with all of life, having that where it's meaningful when it rains, instead of it being a kind of like, oh God, it's raining again. It's like, yes, it's raining again. The land is drinking, the land is green, and we've got loads of power, which is just such a beautiful thing. And it's a very different relationship to a life that I've lived prior, which has been complete disconnect from life. Yeah.
And so you also used the One Planet Living framework in Lammas. Can you speak a little bit about what does the One Planet Living principles mean to you, and how you've kind of incorporated that in life there?
Okay, well, we're pretty fortunate in Wales in that the Welsh government is pretty progressive, pretty green, and so there is this policy in Wales called One Planet Development, which is aligned with One Planet Living. But the basic premise is that if you want to live sustainably on the land and build naturally and be productive with the land, then you can get permission to build a new eco smallholding. And in essence, that's what enabled us as a community to purchase land and build new eco homes on it. But it's I mean, that's a very simplified version of it. You know, there's quite a lot of checks and balances and accounting involved as well. For example, each year we send in an annual report to the council in which we describe and give data on how much food we've grown, how much electricity we've produced, how far we've travelled, what our ecological footprint is, how we have impacted on the local wildlife, etc., etc. So, yeah, it provides a really good framework, especially if you're starting out from the mainstream, with which to design and create a land-based lifestyle. And having lived this lifestyle for well over a decade here, we've been here on the land now 13, 14 years, there comes a point when you kind of leave that framework, or you go beyond that framework. And I mean, in one sense, we all got to make peace, haven't we, with our ecological footprint, with our impact on the earth, and that means different things for different people. But the One Planet Development Policy does provide a framework which is fairly comprehensive to enable that to happen.
I think these frameworks, you know, it's like, yes, that you can be kind of crushed by them, or you can also be liberated by them. And I remember hearing a quote from Rabindranath Tagore about boundaries. And, you know, some people don't like boundaries and, you know, just don't want to have, you know, any boundaries at all. He said, well, a river has banks. And if the river didn't have banks, you know, the water wouldn't be able to flow so easily. And it really made sense. And it's like, but ultimately you have those boundaries until it gets to the ocean. And then it, you know, but it still has a massive boundary. And I think we can kind of bring that in, can't we, when we start to think about these frameworks of like, yes, how much are we kind of held by them, you know, for good or for bad. But yeah.
Yeah, I certainly noticed when we first came to the land and we had these parameters and kind of targets that were enforced on us, I suppose, by the council, that I certainly went through a very teenage rebellion kind of phase of, oh, fuck's sake, why do we have to fulfill these things? It's absolutely ridiculous, you know. And then Tesco's or Sainsbury's can just build a supermarket and they don't have any boundaries they have to live by. And it was a real kind of like, you know, rebel yell. But what I noticed was as we grounded the systems, we grounded the gardens, and then we had the ducks that hoovered up the slugs, and then we had the orchards in place, and then we started to harvest from the land, and then our need for going outside became less because the paradise was beginning to become, you know, the landscape was recovering, and the bird song was just going off the scale because we had the compost heaps, and then the flies were coming in on the compost heaps, and then the birds were coming in to eat the flies, and then the higher predators were coming, and life was coming back into right relationship and right balance, that the need to go to other places was reducing. And so more and more and more of our social needs, spiritual needs, mental needs were being met from our immediate landscape, that suddenly the figures were immaterial. The reality of what was being created so superseded the boundaries, but those boundaries were essential. And coming back to your metaphor of the ocean, it's like we needed that parameter to get us in line, but then we opened up into the ocean of, you know, the paradise and the magnificence of life being here. I mean, get this, Nicola, we've got barn owls living as a permanent roost above our bed. They're still here every year in the attic. Like there is a space. I know. It always sounds a bit more like we literally got them living in our bedroom. So there's there's an aperture that we consciously, when we built the house, put, you know, different little areas for birds to live, and for owls. And for a long time they didn't come, but then suddenly they came, and they've been here ever since. So we have this privilege and this like intrinsic relationship with a very rare bird in the UK, you know, where we hear the purrs, we hear the sounds that you would never normally hear, and have these magnificent birds, you know, around the land constantly, because they have enough life to support their living. You know, it's a real privilege. So whilst those parameters initially were restrictive and irritating and annoying, they were actually essential to help us come into this alignment. And now, you know, we're reaping the benefits of the enormity of the ocean. Yeah, it's quite special.
Well, I remember how exciting it was when I came to the land and seeing this little paradise. It's like, hang on, this is Wales. And inside your polytunnels, you know, it's like this vibrant, it's almost like it's kind of tropical oasis of food. And I just couldn't believe it. I was like, hang on, if we can do this in Wales, we can almost do this anywhere. And it is such a great example of that, of like, look, of the abundance. And who was it that said that, you know, if we tickle the earth, you know, she laughs with an abundance of food. And you really see that at Lammas, that, you know, just give the land a bit of attention. And I think that because so many people, like you say, are so disconnected, they, you know, it's all about fast rush, run into Tesco's, grab some food and go home. And, you know, who even chops up a carrot now? You know, it's like everything can be ready, prepared for you. And, you know, that is such a shift to actually grow a carrot and see how long it takes. And it's one of those things that's this tiny little seed, and you plant it and you think it's never going to grow and it's never going to grow. And then finally it goes through this, and then we just chow down that carrot in a few seconds without any thought as to the process that has gone into it. And I think that because the majority of people living in this country just are totally, you know, disconnected, they don't know where to start. So where do you think is a good place for people to start?
I would say, but you know, perhaps I'm a bit radical, is I would start with the land. You know, I think that well, first of all, it's really encouraging how relatively quickly you can turn around a piece of degraded pasture and create a Garden of Eden. You know, I know we're 13 years in, but when was it you visited? 9 years ago, probably, something like that. I don't know, but
it was when you were building the Earth Centre, because I saw it there whilst it was all being built. So whenever that was.
So it's about 6 years ago, I think.
Yeah, I think you can turn around a piece of land in, say, between 5 and 10 years, let's say. Let's be conservative. You can take a piece of degraded, depleted field and create a Garden of Eden. And so that's incredibly encouraging. I think, and when I say start with land, I mean, people come to this lifestyle because they have become disillusioned with the mainstream paradigm, and they just decide that it's time to try and create solutions for themselves. And in a way, that's one of the most empowering things you can do, is to you know, buy an acre of land, buy 5 acres of land, buy 10 acres of land. You don't have to move on straight away. Just you know, plant some trees, just give it back to nature. But then through that, like Hoppi said, you then develop a relationship with the actual landscape that creates
Connection.
Yeah. Yeah, you just start to connect, you start to appreciate, and then you can start to appreciate actually what it takes to grow a carrot. You know, you can start to appreciate what it takes to grow a tree, and then harvest a tree, and then, you know, have a fire with some friends around while the wood burns. You know, so yeah, I don't think there's anything that can replicate actually engaging with land. And if you are kind of entrenched in a town or in a city, then get an allotment, or get there must be a community supported agriculture scheme near you, but connection with land, with the actual landscape is where I think it's at.
Yes.
Yeah. Sorry, go on, Nicola. You were going to say.
Yeah, no, I think absolutely. I mean, it is critical, isn't it, for people to just get their hands in the dirt, and also that observation. It reminds me of like one of the permaculture principles. It's like, don't do anything for the first year anyway. Just observe that land and see how the land sits, and and as it goes through its cycles and its seasons. And yeah, okay.
I would say start at home with yourself right at the very beginning, and really recognize that we have an immensely powerful thing, which is our ability to choose and to make conscious choices. And so, not everybody has access to land. A lot of people live in cities, live in towns, and don't have that choice available. But we have profound choice in whether we buy a Tetra Pak or a bottle of, a glass bottle. I'm so fortunate, and I'm so grateful to one of my neighbours who has started making her own oat milk, and she serves it in glass bottles. We used to have a dairy, and we used to deliver, organic Jersey milk, and I used to deliver by dog and cart to our neighbours. Actually, it was so much fun. In recycled passata bottles. Do you know what I mean? So we have this immense power to choose, and it can be quite, we're kind of being lulled into this really apathetic way of living that can be quite lazy, because everything's at the press of a button, everything's really super convenient, and it just takes that little bit of additional effort. I'm constantly pulling myself up on this. Even in the world that I'm living in, I still get seduced into this really easy, convenient way of living that's just super quick and not conscious. And it's all around us. So I would say to begin with being vigilant and making conscious choices to support your local farmers market, to support your local growers, to support local craftspeople and local businesses that are consciously looking after earth and creating beautiful craft that doesn't cost the earth. Also, I mean, we had this conversation and it really hit me strongly, Nicola, when you were here, around money and who we bank with. I think that's a massive choice that we all have, because when we're giving our money to a bank that invests in blood diamonds or war, we're literally funding the machine. Whereas if we consciously make different choices, and yeah, it's a big deal to take your money out of a bank that you've been comfortable with and you feel easy with, but you start to channel your money into places that actually invest in good projects. That's a powerful step. So we all have this immense power to choose and use our free will. And I constantly share that teaching with people because I think it's a massive one, and it's one that we have tremendous power to create a different reality. So that's where I would begin.
Well, so when we're singing off the same hymn sheet there, or song sheet, or whatever, because so often people say, well, I'm just one person, I can't make a difference. And, if everybody's saying that, and we carry on like exactly that, everyone's with the bank, everyone's shopping at Tesco's, everyone's buying everything on Amazon, everyone, it's just like, that is the world that we're going to get. Exactly. There comes a point where you've just got to say no. We've got to find another way. And when we do start to make those conscious choices, it's really empowering because you feel good about your choices. And absolutely. I think we've got to get people out of the comparison as well, of comparing, oh, well, it's so much cheaper. And making that comparison of how much it costs at Tesco in comparison to the local farm. And if we just let go of the comparison, it's like, it's an illusion. It's a total illusion, that price. We've got to just buy less. And what we do buy, have it as better quality. And that's really the moral, isn't it?
You're bringing a really, really strong memory for me. When we had our Jersey cow, we were the smallest registered dairy in the UK with one milking cow. And I used to make butter. And the energy that it took to make butter, and we'd have visitors coming in, and I put the, you know, the patted butter, salted butter that I'd worked hard to create, and I put it on the table, and they'd take a big lump and put it on their plate and use a little bit for their bread, and then they'd leave it on their plate. And I was just like,
Oh,
any idea how much work that pat of butter took to create? And it's this disconnect from the creative process of what, you know, like you said, about growing a carrot, about the embodied energy in everything that we use. And the word use even is one that I'm becoming conscious of. I don't want to use things. I want to work with things and have a relationship with things. Because that word use is such a, you know, it's like a throwaway word that is so common in our language. And it's one of those words that we stand under and shapes our world. And I think there's a lot of power in the words that we speak, and how we create our world from the words that we speak, and how we dream this world into reality. And it's time to dream a different world into reality, one that is thriving with life, one where we're in relationship with life, and one where everybody is coming into an abundant state. And I don't mean abundance with necessarily with the ability to spend. I mean abundance in terms of beauty and craft and being held by the landscape, and being in relationship with the bee and the bees, and how they, you know, harvest honey and not utilize them for profit. You know, it's just such a different consciousness, isn't it? It's a relating consciousness. And it all begins with our power to choose, and the power of where we put our energy.
But I think there's another whole angle on this, though, and I think that's to do with well-being and health. I think increasingly people are becoming more conscious about their quality of life. I think wealth is quite an interesting word. I think traditionally it means money, but I think people are redefining that. And it's much more about quality of life. And so in all the small things, you can make a difference for your own well-being. So, you know, rather than buy that pepper that's been grown in a heated greenhouse in the south of Spain and then picked by a disgruntled slave labor and then packed in a factory and picking up all these like horrible energies, you know, before it makes its way finally through, you know, massive fossil fuel use to Tesco's, and then you buy it at Tesco's and then you eat it. Now, you know, the actual like amount of like nature energy in that pepper is, you know, negligible, you know, compared to, okay, it might not be a pepper because this is the UK, but, you know, maybe it's a tomato or something that's grown in the UK, grown locally by a farmer who cares for his land, who cares for his soil, and then, you know, goes to the local farmer's market and comes direct to you. You know, no big lorries, no factories, no slave labor. And so I think there's another whole angle on the consumerist problem, because that's what we're in. We're in an age where consumerism is a problem.
And I'm sure that they will in time be able to show the difference with, you know, how good it is for you, how vibrant it is, the nutrients in something that was picked ages ago and shipped all the way here. I mean, it freaks me out when I eat a banana here, which doesn't happen very often, because I'm like, kind of, what is the point? And, you know, as you know, I've spent many years working in the Amazon, where I have eaten a lot of bananas. It's like, I know what a banana tastes like. And then I come to England and I was like, it's like eating cardboard with a slight aroma of banana somewhere. But it's like, really, it's a totally different thing. But actually, it's reminding me, I am now a fan of crowd farming, because for a long time I wouldn't eat, you know, avocados or mangoes or things in the UK. And then I discovered crowd farming, which they're European, and they're farmers that are organically growing tropical fruits where we can in Europe. And so on crowd farming, you can get a box of mangoes or avocados straight from the tree delivered to you. And I'm like, okay, this is a change, you know, this changes it, that I can have a direct relationship with. Yes, I mean, it doesn't mean to say, yeah, we're going to eat mangoes and avocados all the time, but it's being shipped from Europe, not far, far away. And these are farmers where you're having a direct relationship with the farmers. So there's so much to be said for crowd farming. And so yeah, I mean, I definitely recommend everyone to say check it out. And you have to buy it by box. You can't buy a little tiny amount, because obviously that just wouldn't be worth for them shipping it. So you just get together with a few friends, and we just had, like, a couple of weeks ago, oranges. Oh my God, they were so good, like fresh oranges. Now is the time. And you, through crowd farming, you see obviously what's in season. You can only have what's in season. So again, it brings this new element of, well, mangoes are only in Europe for like about 6 weeks. So that is the time. And you eat a mango and it's like, oh my God, it's actually a real mango.
Yeah.
And so, we do have these ways now that are coming through of saying, well, okay, how can we support farmers that don't have a market? Very difficult for European tropical fruit, because the market is in other countries. Even though they are able to grow it there, they don't have the market. So, and whilst I'm plugging crowd farming, also Hodmedods, it's like another great organization which is all about supporting small local British farmers. And people are wanting to have more of these kind of superfoods, and Hodmedods, it's like there are British farmers growing chia and quinoa and and all these these great foods which normally we buy from far away. But when you check out what they sell in Hodmedods, and they're also really about showing that we might all have loads of miso. Well, we can't grow soybeans, but they make a ferment out of fava beans, comes from the UK. Instead of having maple syrup, they make apple syrup. Instead of having hummus, they show how you can make these like Kargil bean hummus. And so things which are the alternatives to what we're kind of used to. Rice is a classic. They have these naked oats. Oh my goodness, amazing. And it's just like rice. So even though we can be thinking, oh yeah, I'm eating vegetarian or vegan, there can still be a massive impact in where the food is traveling from. And actually, I have been kind of waving a bit of a flag about veganism recently, because a new massive driver of deforestation in the Amazon is for taro. And I had some friends send me these pictures of like, look, Nicola, there's loads of forest being cut down now. It's all being sent to Europe and America. And I was like, okay, what's going on? Why do we have this new industry in taro? And nobody could tell me. And I put it out on Twitter. Does anybody know what the market is in Europe and the States? And somebody sent me a research paper. It is the vegan plant-based food.
Yeah, and people are going into veganism thinking that they're helping save the planet, and suddenly, hey presto, big money, let's just cut down the forest. Same. It just keeps coming around, doesn't it? That we need to take responsibility in our own backyard and make these connections, these relationships with different organizations. I want to throw one in the pot, if I may. Flowers. I grew beautiful flowers, local flowers, for a while. I was looking into cut flowers for people's weddings and for funerals and for all these different celebrations that we have. And, we have this natural, we don't eat, well, you can have edible flowers, but there's very little nutritional value in them. But there is a tremendous amount of beauty and fragrance in flowers. It is one of the biggest industries, huge multi-billion-pound industry that involves so much slavery and so much insane amount of chemicals and transport to get these flowers picked in Africa, some country in Africa, with a woman with a baby on her back wearing a mask, and the baby hasn't got the mask, and spraying these flowers to make sure that they are produced, and then they are put into some sort of homeostasis, and then they're brought over and shipped to Amsterdam, which is the international flower port for the flower industry. Here in the UK, we have a beautiful organization called Flowers from the Farm, who plugs into all these beautiful natural flower farmers in the UK who are growing the most exquisite and beautiful flowers that are native to our lands, who can support your wedding, your funeral, your family, your flowers on the dining room table if that's your wish. You know, you can't pick them from your own garden for whatever reason. Flowers don't have to travel these ridiculous miles. And this was a revelation for me when, you know, it was like, what, 11 years ago, I was growing flowers for the cut flower market. Not for the cut flower market, but for locally. You know, I got into sweet peas in a big way. But it was shocking to me when I started to dig just the amount of atrocity on something that seems so beautiful and so innocent. Absolutely crazy. So flowers from the farm. Do not look anywhere else. Never, please buy flowers from a petrol station or from a supermarket, because they hold so much toxicity, and yet they are so beautiful. So yeah, flowers from the farm.
And then they're wrapped in plastic. So just to top it all up. And then I really, don't you think we need to change Valentine's Day?
Oh, honey, please.
If you want to give flowers in February, what can you give in February?
Oh, the red rose from Kenya.
So can't it be like, you know, repurposed, you know, the date, and you know, in the middle of summer, where you really could go out and pick your loved one a flower from your garden? I mean, actually, it takes it to a whole new level, doesn't it? So, but also, I just want to finish off with, I see, looking on your site, about you've kind of moved on from the idea just of one planet living to these other elements as well, of one planet healing and one planet being. So I love the idea of this kind of the ripple of moving out. So I don't know if you'd like to say something about that.
Well, do you want to say anything first?
Yeah, I think it's one of these things. As human beings, we have the solutions. Is that, you know, we recognize the problems. There are solutions out there. Why are we not using them? And so one of the things we've learned here at Lammas is, you know, we're having demonstrated solutions. That's not enough. Somehow we need to help people evolve, or kind of raise their energy levels, or however it is you want to see it, within themselves, so that they can rework and redesign their lives so that they are part of the solution, and that involves healing. Cue. That was a rugby ball.
Okay, thank you so much. I mean, it's such an interesting thing, isn't it? You know, this idea of relationship with the world, relationship with ourselves, relationship with our environment. So often, you know, why the consumerist culture has become so popular is because people are looking outside to be satiated rather than looking within and to do the inner work. You know, this inner work, there's a hole inside, and people are constantly trying to fill it from the outside with things. Things are never going to cut it. And of course, the TV and the adverts are going to keep telling you that you need this, and you need this, and you need this, and you need this in order to feel this. And it's, of course, the biggest lie that's ever been perpetrated through the vision of TV, you know, the perpetrator of a lot of illusion and a lot of distress, and a lot of disconnect. And, you know, this inner world that we have is a part of nature. It's not separate from nature. It's our inner nature. And when our inner nature comes into a place of, when we come into a relationship with our inner nature, then we can't help but create a relationship with our outer nature, because it's a reflection. Our inner world and our outer world are one. There's no separation from the two spaces. And so part of, you know, One Planet healing, I've been called, part of my journey has been to develop a natural shamanism training, which is about how to, you know, create this, I suppose, this channel between heaven and earth in a very grounded way, where we're relating to our beautiful nature, both inner and outer, and doing the work so that we can relate and connect in deeper and deeper ways, and more loving ways, more caring ways of more care, and more gratitude, and living in gratitude that we even have a life, for goodness sake. You know, it's such a gift, and it's such a short window that we're here on this earth, and we can make positive, powerful impact in ways that are enhancing nature, or we can live a life that is destructive. And so part of natural shamanism is about redressing that balance and becoming, you know, coming into a greater balance and relationship with ourselves and with nature. And then the other part of that work is sound healing. So sound, you know, if you think about it, when we're conceived, the very first organ that develops is the ears. The ears are the first organs that develop in a fetus. And so the first sound that we hear is the heartbeat of our mother. That heartbeat rhythm, it's the first sound that comes into our awareness as a developing fetus. And then, of course, you know, rhythm is so intrinsic. The rhythm of the blood, the rhythm of the heart, and then the rhythm of the contractions as we come into this world, and then the rhythms of life and the sounds of life. Sound is absolutely essential, and it's related to our frequency and our resonance. You know, when we meet someone and we have a resonance, we're in tune with them. So we have all these metaphors for the way that sound is absolutely intrinsic to life. And so the sound healer practitioner training is literally that. It's how to work with these like age-old tools that we've had to promote and raise the vibration, raise the frequency, so that we are connecting, relating again with the natural world, so that we pause and we listen to the rain and we listen to the birds and we have relationship with life. So in that, then we come into being. We are in this consciousness of being with the world in a state of peace and in a state of connection and in a state of grounded reality. And from that place, then we can take action, right action, so that all of life thrives. So that's essentially the evolution that's been happening here as we kind of, you know, look at the ways that this incredible gift and this remarkable opportunity that we've been given, you know, to create this eco-village, and then how can we then make a bridge to the other world, and you know, and as people are attracted to this beacon that we've, you know, that we're cultivating and I suppose beaming out into the world, how can we actually help people make that shift so that, you know, the resonance of this place becomes deeply meaningful and inspires change in people's lives. You know, when they go back into their lives, it's like, it doesn't feel right anymore. I can't live in this way. I need to make changes. And then we can support people in doing that. And then of course that ripples out and that ripples out and that ripples out. And so, you know, in a very humble, prayerful, you know, way, just praying that we can, make positive impacts in the sweetest ways that we can.
Well, I think you both definitely are, because it's so much of nature is about replication. And so, you know, when people come and they see Lammas, it gives them an idea of how it can be replicated. And if we don't have those images, those experiences, then we don't know what to replicate. So, you know, I think it's really vital that we, you know, it is us leading by example. It's us being able to show that another way is possible, and just living it. And if I'm just finishing off with, I was speaking at the Sustainability Centre at the Green Fair on Sunday. And one of my all-time favorite sayings was by Joan Baez. And she said, action is the antidote to despair.
So true.
And it's so true. People say, oh, don't you get overwhelmed? I say, well, I don't have time to, because actually, if your life is full and you're of service and you're being and you're doing, you don't have time to be in despair. So there are so many people out there that are so overwhelmed by the state of the world right now. You know, we are in this major collapse, and it's like, just get out and do something, anything. And that gives us this sense of purpose and of service. And then we fill our days. And at the end of the day, you feel satisfied. It's like, okay, we've achieved something today. And if that we can rub that off onto other people to show them that we need all hands on deck. You know, we need many more Lammases. We need many more people that are, you know, living on the land, and not in a sustainable way, to be thriving and really finding that place back like the rest of nature. So thank you both so much for coming along, and I look forward to my next visit. And I will put the links of Lammas with this.
Nicola, you've just gone muted. I don't know whether your microphone is just
Thank you.
that last part.
Which was that I will put all the links for everybody to be able to come and look what you're doing and come and visit. And yeah, may we all just keep on keeping on. So thank you very much.
Gorgeous to see you, Nicola. Can't wait for you to come again. Love you, Dun. Thank you so much.